Hello, I'm Arif Fahrudin. Welcome to another Asian Agribusiness podcast. My colleague Meliana talks to animal nutrition consultant Peter Robson about the potential of local alternative feed ingredients, as well as its challenges and opportunities in the future.
Hi, Peter. It's nice to have you in this podcast where we will be talking about local feed ingredients. Before we start, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, and hope everybody has a good podcast. Peter Robson is my name. I'm a consultant in the animal industry, animal nutrition. So yeah, let's move on with the podcast. No problem.
Okay, let's roll. Amid higher prices of corn and soybean meal and supply disruption, feed millers and farmers in Asia are looking to leverage alternative feed ingredients from local sources. So,
What are the new alternative ingredients available in the region?
So what we're looking at really is a broad range of product already that is used in the marketplace by the feed millers and by the farmers. The new ones that I see that are available for Asian Asian use would be more use of the waste fruit. In other words, the fruit that doesn't live up to human standard in terms of bananas, apples, mangoes, jackfruit, etc. The peels, and especially the peels, because there's a lot of fruit in Asia that is peeled and juiced and so on. So pineapple, citrus, apple, jackfruit, mango, vegetables in terms of pumpkin and potato, wet products, which is a byproduct of food from soybean, from beer waste, from cassava, from sweet potato, from beet, from noodle, and from the bakery wastes. Liquids in terms of vinasse, from amino acid production, biodiesel production, yeast production. Liquid byproducts from soybean and cassava and MSG, and others like coffee hulls, cashew hulls, and peanut shells.
what challenges do feed producers face in sourcing and using local ingredients? What strategy can they adopt to overcome these challenges, Peter?
Are you talking about feed millers or farmers? Yeah, or both?
Both.
Both. Okay. The challenges would be I see the main issue is the purchasing department, or the people purchasing for the farm can go out and find a number of different new types of ingredient that can be used in a ration. The difficulty that I see is when they bring that new ingredient back to the feed milling team, or to the feed mill or to the farm, it's normally rejected. And the reason why is because, one, it's wet and it can't fit. Two, they don't know how to store it or handle it. Three, they have no more spare bins. There's a whole host of reasons why. But what I see when it works is there are regular meetings between the purchasing people or departments, the technical people departments, the production people, the financial people, and the sales people.
Okay. How do you define feed quality and how do you measure it? What are some indicators of feed quality problems?
Normal. Normally, the animals will tell us. The animals or the fish aquaculture will tell us that there is an issue with palatability, or with pellet quality. In other words, with dustiness, via intake and feed rejection. A little after, if there is a problem with the feed quality in terms of nutritional status, over time, the animal or the the fish or the shrimp will tell us in terms of their growth or their development or their meat quality or their milk quality or egg production. So normally the indicators of feed quality, the animal or the aquaculture species will tell us, and therefore we need to look at very, very carefully and monitor the animal production, whatever we're measuring, whether it is um, egg production or milk or whatever it is. We need to monitor that and then understand why there is a drop in production, or alternatively why there is an increase, and then understand what we've done in order to gain that that increase in production. So the quality can also be measured through the quality systems that would sit within a feed mill. So within a quality system, which is quite standard these days in terms of feed milling and the larger farms, to have an ISO system or a farming system that would work to deliver the quality systems on a daily basis. And that can mean that the purchasing and the quality department would look at the feed ingredient, the quality, the supplier, all the things to do with the ingredient. The technical department would then look at the formulation process and and make a feed that is commensurate with the requirements in order to satisfy that animal's production, whether that be egg or milk or whatever it is. The production department, in other words, the manufacturing of the pellet or the TMR and so on, then has a role in making sure that that pellet or that feed is delivered to the customer in front of the livestock, in front of the fish, such that they will eat it, they won't reject it, and therefore understanding that their role is developing a pellet or a feed that will satisfy the intake of that animal and hence the production of that animal. So again, it's actually, feed quality is another team process. There's many departments involved. There's an ISO system that will measure that, but it can also be done. It can be done through the ISO system, through a lab and measuring things that way, but it also then can be done through measuring the animal's performance.
Peter, when using local alternative ingredients, feed producers often have to modify feed formulations. Please explain why. How could this affect feed quality? Does this add to cost?
Yes. Okay. It's under the current circumstance, it's very difficult to say that it will add to costs. But normally, in most situations, yes, it will add to cost, because otherwise, if that new ingredient was available in the past, or was part of an ingredient process. So what we normally look at is what that raw ingredient, or what that ingredient will supply in terms of dry matter, protein, amino acids, fatty acids, fiber, minerals, vitamins, etc. And the nutritionists are trained in this area. Normally they're university trained. They've actually had training in feed formulation software, and for example, Alex or Best Mix or Brill or Format, and there's many other software formulation programs that, when you understand how to use that, can take all the information, all the components of every ingredient, put them into a formulation that will then give back what is in that pellet if you include the ingredients in at varying percentages, and will give you the indication yet this pellet or this feed through a TMR will satisfy the nutritional requirements of that dairy cow, of that swine, of that lactating sow, or that egg laying poultry, or that broiler in producing meat. And therefore, if you use an ingredient that is inferior to the ones you are using, then of course you will need to change the formula to improve that formula because of the downgrade of that new raw ingredient, and add other additives that will then lift that level of that feed back up to the standard that it was before that new ingredient went in. And normally that case will add cost to a ration, and therefore it becomes very, very important to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the reasons why you are looking at new alternative ingredient in a ration. And in some instances, it can be that you just don't have enough grain or protein meal that you would normally use. It's either too expensive or it's not available, and you look for alternatives. So it's very important that you understand the nutritional value of all the ingredients and how they work together in order to satisfy the production performance or the growth performance of livestock and aquaculture.
Okay, Peter, negative effects must also be considered before we use local feed ingredients like cassava. Too many anti-nutritional factors and needs extra processing. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. Look, there's a number of anti-nutritional factors that sit within a number of ingredients. So, for example, there's one there that I mentioned before, which was coffee hull. Now, if you look at coffee hull, and you understand some of the testing that sits within the coffee hull, you actually have some level of caffeine already attached, or that is part of that coffee hull. Now, feeding too much caffeine to certain types of livestock, young livestock especially, can cause issues in terms of anti-nutritional factors. And again, you are correct in terms of the anti-nutritional factors that that sits with some of the the cassava plant. So again, understanding the nutritional information that sides with all the ingredients, it becomes important to know how that can be utilized and put into a formulation that will enable that livestock or aqua species to perform the way that it should, and that becomes really something that is important in having people that understand nutrition and technical information. Yes.
When using commercially, which form is best for feeding for local feed ingredients, as you mentioned, Peter?
Well, normally a lot of the feed mills cannot, or the feed millers cannot utilize whole bananas, cannot utilize the peel of pineapple or citrus or jackfruit or whatever. So in a lot of instances, those types of products are left for farmers to use that mix their own in terms of a TMR. So if you have a TMR that can cut, in other words, if you have a long length of pineapple peel, or you have half a jackfruit, for example, or other types of whole pumpkins or whatever, and it can go into a TMR that has a cutting action. That cutting action can break the peel down so that it's in smaller pieces, and the animal, whether it's for the dairy cow or for the beef cow or for the swine, can actually consume it and eat it, and will benefit from it. So most of the new ingredients that I mentioned there would not be used by the feed mills. Maybe the bakery waste would, if it was a dry product, but if it's a wet product, they would not use it. So the feed mills will use some of the they may use, for example, peanut shell if they can break it down. They may use the cassava and so on if it's dry, but if it's wet, they won't. It becomes very difficult for them to use it. So most of the ingredients there will not be used by feed millers and can be utilized by the farmer themselves. Yes.
Do you think local alternative ingredients will be used more? Is it possible that they altogether replace the traditional grains and protein sources now in widespread use? What do you see in the future for feed producers as regards local ingredients?
Uh, a lot of the local ingredient, um, I don't see that they can really replace the traditional grains and protein meals and fats. The way that our genetics has been developed, we've developed the genetics, for example, for the broiler or for the sow to require a certain amount of nutritional feed with intake every day being so many grams per day or so many kilos per day. If that feed integrity is compromised, you will not get the production. You will not end up with the sow producing so many piglets. You will not get the piglets growing out at a certain rate to fatten so that they can produce the meat, or the poultry producing the egg, or the broiler. So I don't see that the local feed production can replace entirely the traditional types of feeds that has gone into the pellet. I see it more that it can be used as a small volume replacement when required, and if required, the nutritionists then will need to make the decision that, okay, we compromise somewhat and we decrease the nutritional value of the feed, knowing that you decrease the nutritional value of the feed and that milk production may drop, or that sow production may drop, in other words, the number of piglets and her weight gain and so on. So you can make decisions to change the nutritional value, knowing that you will affect the productivity of the livestock.
Thank you very much, Peter, for sharing your insight in this podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, no problems. I hope it's been useful and valuable, and anytime we can do it again. So no problem. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and I hope this podcast is valuable for you. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please visit our website www.asian-agribis.com.